So this talk is called Next Level Chaos Engineering. That's the other slide, doesn't matter.
Some chaos into our talk. I figured it would be fun, you know, not too planned.
We prepared this.
Well, hi there, my name is Medina. I'm currently a chaos engineer at Gremlin. Previous to that, I worked at Uber for about 2 years, where I worked in their SRE and infrastructure. I got a chance to actually get started on chaos engineering there. Uber was running on bare metal, so they actually wanted to use Chaos Monkey, but they couldn't since we were in AWS. So they built our own chaos engineering tool called UDestroy. It was a lot of fun to work on that. Then after that, I worked on another project under cloud infrastructure, and that was kind of like trying to get Uber to move over to the cloud. The idea from the management was kind of like, well, our last bare metal data center took actually 6 months to build. Well, we want to actually have an Uber-ready data center, but within 24 hours. By the way, we want to be vendor agnostic, so build it using AWS and GCP. So I got like a lot of really cool hands-on experience. Prior to that, I've worked at Google, a credit union in Florida, Quicken Loans, a small startup, and I did college research with Stanford and Miami-Dade College.
Yeah. Cool. And yeah, my name's Tammy. I'm an SRE here at Gremlin, and previously to this, I was working at Dropbox as an SRE manager, leading the databases team and also block storage, which is called Magic Pocket. And I was there for the big migration from S3 to our own in-house built platform written in Go. So that was really cool to be leading that team. And then I also actually got to lead another team called Code Workflows, which is similar to your developer tools for engineers working inside a company. And that was interesting to look at how do you make that more reliable, which we did in 3 months, amazing. And yeah, I've got a lot of cool stories to share from my time at Dropbox, which we'll go through today. And yeah, I was also the incident manager on call for Dropbox, which means I was on call for some of the biggest, baddest internet outages. Like one of them was the big S3 outage, and I was just, you know, at my laptop for hours. I'm sure many of you were on that incident as well. And prior to that, I worked at DigitalOcean and also QT. So today we want to talk to you about the why, how, and what of chaos engineering. And the main message that we really want to share is it's super important to focus on impact. So there's really not much point doing it unless you're trying to get impactful results. And we're going to share with you how you can actually get those impactful results. So first off, let's start with why you would want to actually practice chaos engineering. So 10x, big number, right? While I was working at Dropbox, I was actually able to work with my team to achieve a 10x reduction in incidents using chaos engineering in only 3 months, which is pretty amazing, right? So that's one of my most, I'm like really happy that we were able to do this with chaos engineering. I was so happy when it happened. And there's a lot of things that go into making this happen. First off, you need to understand what your biggest problems are, what your critical systems are, how they interact. You need to analyze the incidents that are occurring, and then you need to do chaos engineering experiments. So you need to figure out the hypothesis. You need to then run the experiments. There's quite a lot that goes into it. The next one was we were able to achieve a 100% reduction in high severity incidents. And this was actually over 12 months following that first 3 months of focusing on reducing the database incidents by 10x. So 100% reduction, like that was awesome. We set our team goal as a 20% reduction. When you get 100%, you're like, that's awesome, let's party. The other thing is preparing for IPO. So I did a lot of chaos engineering experiments to prep for IPO. If you've worked in a bank, you'll understand that things are heavily regulated. Same thing for when you're doing an IPO, right? You need to be able to actually prove that you can do failover in front of your auditors. You need to sit there, you need to demonstrate it to them live in production, and this is really important for when you're doing an IPO.
Another reason why chaos engineering should be used is that you want to know that you're serving your customers like a really good experience all the time, and especially when you're about to launch a new product. At Gremlin, we actually do that on a day that we call Failure Fridays. We've actually done this with pretty much any of the last things that we've actually launched. So you heard earlier today that we launched a new product called Alfie. Well, about 2 weeks ago, our team came together and we ran a Failure Friday on Alfie. And we're a remote-first company, so of course we kind of like set together a Google Doc. Then we have a separate Slack room where we're actually going to be running through our Failure Friday day. And then we have the Zoom call where we all jump in for the desired time. We have someone in charge that day that has come up with different chaos engineering experiments that they want to be running on this product. And then we have another column that you can put your name. if you want to be running that experiment, and of course, the expected outcome. So we all come together to make sure the products that we're serving our customers allow their customers to have like the best experience possible, but we also like dog fooding our own stuff. So chaos engineering is what we do always.
Yeah.
I thought there was another slide before that, but it's okay, it's okay. Another thing is that new services, new technologies are always coming up. These new products are always a great way to make sure that your company is a lot more reliable, a lot more available. But what do you do when you have two different technologies that are coming out and you kind of don't know which one you want to go with, which tool is more reliable, which one actually suits your business needs more? So by actually practicing chaos engineering on the two tools that you actually are thinking about using is a good way that you can actually narrow it down to just the one tool that you want to use. Another reason why chaos engineering could be used at your company is actually that you want to upgrade versions in any of the software that you're currently running, especially things that you have running on cloud infrastructure. Well, you kind of just don't want to go and upgrade everything on production and be like, oh shit, hopefully nothing breaks. That's kind of scary. So a good way to do that is actually by upgrading your staging and then running chaos engineering experiments on that, making sure that everything is resilient, reliable, and once you get the green light on that, you can actually go and upgrade production.
So how do we practice chaos engineering? Now we've talked to you about why you would want to practice it. Let's talk about how you actually do it. So one of the first things to think about is chaos engineering tools. Definitely need some chaos engineering tools to be able to do this. Another good thing is talks. So we really recommend actually having internal talks within your own company. If you're going to be leading the chaos engineering program at your company, it's good to be able to say, hey, like I'm going to speak at all hands about this, or even just run a technical talk internally and let people ask you questions, because there is often a little bit of a fear when you say the word chaos at your company. It's definitely something that might happen. And the other thing is guides. It's nice to have tutorials for your engineers internally, some guides on how to do chaos engineering and explain to them. The other thing you should do is make Failure Friday open to your whole company. So this is important because you're creating an open culture of chaos. And it's really good for everybody if you're in the sales team, if you're in the product team, if you're in the design team, any team, engineering, customer support, every team should be able to come along and learn more about your product and how it might fail, because it's important for everyone to know what that looks like.
On-call training is also another way to use chaos engineering. Colton kind of like made a silly joke about it earlier. Many of us actually may have just been on call just by like, here, have a pager, you're on call. Well, that actually was my experience. I was on call during my second week at Uber, and I actually was an intern. So it was extremely crazy. It was just like, here's your pager duty account. These are some dashboards you kind of look at. This is a run book. This is all you need, just go. And well, I think I got paged like 3 days in. And it wasn't just a page in the middle of the day that I can just turn to my coworker and be like, hey, I need help. I have no idea what to do. I got paged around 2, 3 in the morning, and I'm like, fuck, let me open up that run book. Okay, I got there. Shit, it's 180 days old. Do I just run these commands and like pray that everything goes well? Well, at that moment, I kind of didn't have a choice. And well, looking back, it's kind of like, hey, there's a better way to actually onboard an engineer into your company, onboard an engineer into any production service, and especially onboard them into on-call. So you actually just want to get them set up and then run these chaos engineering experiments and be like, hey, this can actually happen at any time. Let's run a chaos engineering experiment to actually reproduce the S3 outage. And that way you actually know what to do when that happens. And you also get to make sure that your runbooks are all up to date. A good practice of chaos engineering is something that we like talking a lot about. Very often. We like saying that you want to run chaos engineering experiments throughout your entire stack, especially your critical services. But you also want to be doing that very often. And that actually means running chaos engineering experiments 3 times a week for every single service.
Yeah, this is something that we actually did at Dropbox to achieve that 10x reduction in incidents. It was running experiments 3 times a week for the database systems for 3 months. So, what do we do to practice chaos engineering?
Well, there was a slide earlier that we were going to be talking about the different levels of chaos engineering, and in a way, kind of like how we do that to battle test different cloud infrastructure. Well, today we want to, test out some of the new technologies that folks out here in this audience are using and other big companies. So today we present you Street Chaos Fighter. AKS versus EKS. So there's going to be a lot going on in the next few slides. We're going to be using just straight out of the box Kubernetes. We've pulled up the Kubernetes dashboard as our service that we're going to be playing around with. We've also installed the Gremlin agent into the host that we're running on. And we've also, of course, need monitoring in order to run this chaos engineering experiments. So we're using Datadog.
Yeah, so let's get started. Alrighty, so round one, the first thing we wanted to start with is our app container attack. So I'm going to speak pretty fast as I explain to you how this goes, but let's do it. Alrighty, on the left you've got AKS and you've got EKS on the right. Here we've loaded up Kubernetes and you can see that we have the dashboard running on both. And this is just straight out of the box. Kube dashboard is something that comes built in, gives you a UI and you're able to load up daemon sets. We loaded Datadog and Gremlin just using the create functionality. So really easy to get started. You can see here in Datadog that we have the Kubernetes dashboard running. It's the top container. And here we're going on EKS to actually create an attack. So I'm just going to select a shutdown attack. And this is selecting the Kube dashboard container. So I'm just choosing it here. And then I'm going to choose the Gremlin, which is a state attack and a shutdown. So then we're going to run that attack. I'm changing the delay to 0, and I'm choosing it not to reboot, and then I'm going to run it right now. So my hypothesis here is that, well, hopefully the dashboard should just work. I'm kind of surprised that there's only one dashboard container, not two, for redundancy. But let's see if the dashboard actually does pop back up, if a new container is created, and also if it actually works, or if I have to do anything else to get it to work. So let's see, right now we're just waiting for it to pop back up. You can see that it doesn't exist under EKS, and it's not in sync. Sorry, it's a little hard to do. So we've got an error here. For EKS, it has an error page when the container disappears. And we'll see when the container comes back up what happens next. Alrighty. So we've got that error page, let's refresh. There we go, boom. So it came back up. It was able to identify that new container and display the dashboard. So that's awesome. That worked. Now let's see on the AKS though. We've got the container back up, but it doesn't look like it's loading. Let's look, refresh. Oh, still not loading, what's going on? All right, pull up our terminal. We can see that it's had an error. So it's actually trying to connect to the old container. So I'm going to have to restart kube proxy and get it to connect to the right container, and then it will work. So that's the first experiment that we wanted to show you. Straight out of the box, like AKS versus EKS, what does this look like? And this is important to think about just in terms of if you have containers, like what happens if they shut down and fail? Do you have dependencies? Like what goes on? Do they take down other containers?
For the next round, we wanted to do packet loss. So for the packet loss, we're going to be using Gremlin once again. We're going to be attacking the dashboard container, so we'll go ahead and select that under our target. And we like thinking about the blast radius. If we would have run the packet loss attack with just 1% of packets being dropped, well, we won't see much. So we're actually going to be doing 70% of those packets will be lost. Our hypothesis is that we'll still get an experience on the Kubernetes dashboard. It might not be the best thing, but we still want to see how like the UI handles. And this is kind of like the attack that you want to do. And I also like talk it out with like your UI team and be like, so if our customer is having some packet loss in whatever country they're currently like based out of, what is the experience that they're going to be getting? So we see that the attacks are currently pending on EKS. It started running. We see the dashboard. You don't see like the menu showing. We pulled up the logs. We see that it's context canceled. The attack is still running. We see with AKS that we have the overview menu still displaying, but there's really like nothing really telling us what exactly is going on. So thinking about kind of like how do you tell your engineering team that something on the UI is not showing well is something that you can think about. For a service like Netflix, it's like, well, you're trying to stream that video. Well, what could you have done to kind of like degrade, like show a degraded experience, but still give that customer a really good experience? So we can still see that the packet loss attack is running, and
and you can see that overview is missing on the right as well on EKS, just the word overview. So there's like small things like that that are different between the services. Yeah, now we're back.
Yeah, I think they're still both running. And attacks are finishing up, and we see that the dashboards are starting to load up back to their usual normal state.
Yeah. Cool. All right, round 3. So the next one we want to talk about is Regent Failover, which Adrian mentioned earlier in his talk as well. So yeah, the Regent Failover attack. Let's see how this goes. Well, you can't set up multi-region out of the box. So 0, 0 for both. And you can see here in the docs, you can deploy to 3 regions right now for EKS, but you can only deploy to 1 region, right? If you want to deploy to multiple regions, then you need to do it yourself. You need to set up 2 regions yourself. You need to do traffic routing. You also need to make sure that everything works yourself. But what we think would be cool is if like we could help push the industry forward and say like multi-region's really good. It's good like if you have an earthquake or a hurricane that you could actually fail over to a different side of the US. And this does happen quite a lot. Also think back to that big S3 outage when everybody was down because they're all in one region and S3 wasn't working in that region. So region failover is really important, but not currently possible straight out of the box.
KO!
So it's a KO. Another thing we wanted to start thinking about is, you know, in security engineering, I used to be a security engineer at the National Australia Bank, and I thought it was really cool that you could get money if you identified security vulnerabilities, you know, with bug bounty programs. We don't have anything like that for reliability engineering. Like, why not? And, you know, I think that chaos engineering is a way to actually lead that charge and move forward. Companies could start to create programs to give engineers money for identifying reliability issues and vulnerabilities, and this could be like a whole new field that we create as a community.
We want you to continue this conversation, so please join us into the Chaos Engineering Slack. If you go over to gremlin.com/Slack, you can join in, and definitely there's a lot of channels of like how to get started, different open source initiatives that are currently going on, and you can even start a conversation on how do you create a better chaos engineering culture around all the companies around us.
Yeah. And just for some fun, join us tonight to play Street Fighter IRL at the Emporium at 8 p.m. We've reserved some tables after the happy hour, so we'd love to see you there. That would be awesome. And thank you so much.